Joining me now is Liberal Senator Alex Antic. Alex, it's great to see you, as always. We're big fans on this show, as I know you are, of Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Well, he's a politician who's not afraid to actually speak up. He's taken a stand. So in America, you have this ghastly teaching that America is racist. It's called critical race theory, or CRT, and it's through all the schools. He's taken a stand against it and saying, no, enough of this. Just have a listen, Alex, to how he stood up to the kind of teachers and the woke brigade.
We are required to teach slavery, the post-Reconstruction and segregation, civil rights. Those are core parts of American history that should be taught, but it should also be taught accurately. For example, the 1619 Project is a CRT version of history. It's supported by the New York Times. They want to teach our kids that the American Revolution was fought to protect slavery, and that's false. We know why the American Revolution was fought. They wrote pamphlets. We saw them dump tea into the Boston Harbor.
Alex, we heard all sorts of nonsense during the Queen's funeral and so on. Genocide, all sorts of accusations against colonial Britain and early Australians. Why aren't Australian Conservative politicians standing up like that and saying you cannot teach fraudulent history?
Yeah, well, it's a great question, Rowan. I actually did a bit of a thing on this in the Senate a couple of weeks ago when we were last sitting, a speech to the Senate, which actually caused Senator Lydia Thorpe to prove my point, but, you know, arc up, I suppose, is the point. But the whole concept is politicians, leaders of all types, but politicians in particular, have got to muscle up and stop getting worried about being called names and singled out by the bullies of the ABC, whatever it might be, and start getting back to telling the truth about what was a successful civilization, the Western civilization, the Judeo-Christian values that brought us so much, brought us, you know, the end of slavery, at least in the ancient times, the vote for women and all this sort of stuff. I think it boils down to just having people in the seats that have the relevant spine and the conviction to speak without fear or favour. Ron DeSantis has got it. I love him. I reckon he's fantastic. And look, we do need to give people some confidence there. But I think ultimately this comes down to cover fire. It goes to everyone as well, by the way, Ron. I should say this is about people at dinner parties saying, hang on a minute, that's not right.
Yep, absolutely.
You know, wherever you are, Conservatives and push back. Yeah.
Absolutely. Need to speak up because it disturbs me. You have people like, you have books like Bruce Pascoe's books, which is taught in schools about Dark Emu. You had, I remember hearing on the drum, Alex, some character saying that pre-settlement Indigenous First Nations people had these benign, beautiful societies with matriarchal societies where it was all kumbaya, peace and love. I mean, this sort of stuff, kids are being taught and no one is saying, no, hang on, let's teach the reality. Now, speaking of Parliament, Alex, I'm delighted to say that you've got a special guest you're taking to Parliament in a couple of weeks. Tell us about it.
Yeah, well, I've been fortunate enough to be offered the opportunity to host Nigel Farage, the great Nigel Farage, who is somebody who has no problem speaking without fear or favour. I think we can all safely say that. But he's been brought here by Turning Point Australia, he's just doing a speaking tour across the eastern states, and he's taking the opportunity to drop into Canberra to speak to some MPs and the media, and all of our friends in the fake news media are going to be there front row centre, I'm sure, being very nice to Nigel, and I reckon he's going to deal with them very, very comfortably as well. So we look forward to a fair bit of that. It should be a fairly triggering event for the fairly consistently left-wing building that we're in across the board. I don't think they're going to like it too much. But you know what, Rowan? Let them call us names. Who cares?
I can't wait to see Nigel Farage in the Australian Parliament there. Listen, we've also had a couple of things. Credit Suisse are saying that Australians are the world's richest people. Apparently we're richer than Belgium, New Zealand, everybody else. At the same time, we've got the head of the Reserve Bank in Australia telling our politicians, you've got to start taxing the people more while I raise interest rates more. We're not going to be the wealthiest people in the world for much longer, are we, Alex?
No, everything old is new again, Rowan. And once again, it depends how you look at these figures, because the report showed, I think, that if you look at the 1% of Australians who are the most wealthy, they owned, I think in 2007, something like 19-point-something% of the wealth. Now it's 21 and a bit. What we're actually seeing is the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And that's been the experience across the Western world, of course. COVID has been a very convenient way of transferring wealth to the
Yep.
billionaire class and the global elites. That's what's happened. Jeff Bezos is just, he goes to bed every night, just takes out hundreds and sleeps on it. You know, it's just, I mean, it's the same old, same old. So, look, I don't think you'd want to have that conversation with families that are genuinely struggling in the rest of Australia, who are having trouble with cost of living and inflation and all the things that affect normal people. But unfortunately, the effect of COVID has been to make the rich richer and the poor poorer. It's horses for courses, Ron. Depends who you ask.
And after COVID comes climate change, which will carry on doing the same. Alex Antic, thanks so much for your time.